everyone, it's Melissa with a craft activity for you. Today I thought I would show you how to take these ordinary kitchen sponges and create this fun sponge ball that's awesome for outdoor water activities. You can also make one and use it in your sink or in your bathtub. So these are super quick and easy to make. I think this one took me maybe a couple of minutes, and they only require a few materials. So for each one that you're going to make, you're going to need 2 regular sponges, and these are the ones without the scrubby side, 1 rubber band, and a pair of scissors that can cut through a sponge. If you're like me and you kind of struggle with cutting straight and even lines, and they don't have to be perfect, it's just so that your sponge pieces are about the same size, you're also going to want to have either a pen or marker and either a ruler or a small measuring tape to mark out where you're going to be cutting your sponge. So once you have all of that, we're ready to get started. The first thing you're going to need to do is cut each sponge into 6 pieces, and the way to do that is to take each sponge and cut it the long way so that you have 6 long pieces for each sponge. Now, for me, what I'm going to do is take my small measuring tape and a pen and mark out where I need to cut to make 6 about even pieces. My sponges are 3 inches wide, so I'm going to make a mark at every ½ inch, which can sometimes be difficult with a sponge. Now that I've done the top, I'm going to go ahead and flip it over and do the bottom the exact same way. And you don't need to do this. If you don't want to, you can obviously skip it, but it just keeps me on track to cut relatively evenly. So I'm going to go ahead and mark out my blue sponge as well, and then I'm going to cut them into strips. So my sponges are both marked, and I am now going to cut them out. But before I start, I do want to say that you do need relatively sharp scissors to cut a sponge because they're very spongy. So as an adult, if you're watching this, you have 2 choices. You can choose to cut the sponge yourself and give maybe a younger child the pieces to put together. Or if you have an older child that you trust with sharper scissors, you can also have them do it. Just make sure if you're having a child use relatively sharp scissors, you're going to want to stay with them to make sure that everything is going safely and they're not going to accidentally cut themselves with the scissors. So with that, let's slice these up. Alright, so I've finished cutting up my sponges, and I have 6 little sponge lengths for each sponge. I'm going to want to start assembling the actual ball now. And if you have been cutting the sponges for a child at this point, this is probably the point that you're going to want to give it back to the child to assemble. So what I'm going to do is take each sponge. I like to stagger the coloring, but you're going to take a layer. You're going to make 2 layers. You're going to make 1 layer with 6 lengths and then do the exact same thing and stack it on top. What I like to do is, like I said, stagger the colors so it's kind of striped, but you don't have to if you want to do it, all one color or stagger it however you want. Go for it. So it's going to end up looking something like this. I'm then going to take my rubber band and I put it in the middle, and I find with my sponges I have to wrap it around at least 3 times. And if you're doing this with a child, they might need a little bit of help with that because it does get a little bit difficult as you start wrapping around. But now it's starting to look like the actual sponge ball. So at this point, you can just take your sponges, or have your child take the sponges, and just kind of start adjusting them so they actually stick out. You can fold them if you want, you can tug them. The great thing about this is if you accidentally pull one out, you can always just stick it right back in. It's not an exact science by any means. So just let me fold these little, and ta-da! You're all set. And you now have a sponge ball. Alright, so you might be saying to yourself, now that I've made these sponge balls, what in the world am I supposed to do with them? So, like I said before, these are really fun if you want to give them to your child to play with in the sink or in the bathtub. You can also use them instead of water balloons to toss back and forth on a hot day. All you need is the sponge balls in a bucket. Um, and the other thing that you can do that I've set up behind me is kind of like a beanbag tossing game, but with sidewalk chalk and the sponges. And what you're going to do is take a bucket full of water and your sponges, and you're going to put the sponges in the bucket, and then I drew out this kind of ring bullseye thing with different points on each ring, and you can toss them like a beanbag toss for different amounts of points. I already did a round, and you can either choose to assign points or not assign points, just see how close you can get it to the center. But it's just a fun hot day activity to do with a bucket of water and some sponge balls. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time